This video is focused on the major type of writing we're going to do in this first unit, which is the rhetorical analysis essay. So I want to just give you an overview here of what this type of essay is, and then tomorrow you're going to practice writing an entire one. So we're not going to get into too many specifics because we'll have many more lessons on this, but it's just kind of giving you a broad look at what this essay does as opposed to other types of essays. So let's just look at this example to start getting into it. Imagine you're existing in two parallel universes. In both, unfortunately, you've done poorly on an assignment. Your teacher in the first universe gives it back to you and says, "This isn't your best work, try and do better next time." In the other universe, your teacher gives it back to you and says, "You have failed worse than you usually fail. Put at least an ounce of effort into it next time." Now, in both, the meaning is essentially the same. You didn't do well, try and do better next time. But in this second, if we look at the way that the teacher has chosen to phrase his or her words, there's a big difference, right? So you usually fail. Just the word usually is significant. This comparison here, not just saying you've failed, but comparing it to other times that you've failed, adds emphasis. Put at least an ounce of effort into it next time. There's such sarcasm there. Just even the phrase "an ounce of effort," there's something figurative about that, since effort usually doesn't weigh much at all, literally speaking. But just saying an ounce of effort adds to the sarcasm here. All of those choices result in a different effect on the person hearing them, right? If you heard this one, with all of these choices made, you feel greatly discouraged. This one, the first one, is not nearly as soul-crushing, is it? It's kind of encouraging compared to this one. The point of rhetorical analysis essay is to basically say, how does an author achieve a certain effect using certain writing techniques? So if we just look at this definition here, you can pause and read. But basically, the second teacher uses specific choices that create a discouraging effect upon the listener. Rhetorical analysis would seek to prove how the different techniques used by the author create that effect. So we'd write an entire essay saying, all right, one paragraph just on how the word usually is important. One paragraph just on how that whole ounce of effort phrase is important. One paragraph just on that whole worse than you normally fail or usually fail. Just that comparison, comparing it to other failures, how that has an effect. We could do even more than that, just on this sentence. But the whole point of the essay is then to prove that these choices by the author create this effect. This is different from a normal literary essay, which might be just, let's write an analysis of the theme of this text or how a character transforms over the course of the text. That's focused on content. Rhetorical analysis is focused on how it's written, and how the author intends for something to happen as a result of their word choice or their stylistic techniques. The issue with these essays is when you're asked to do one, the requirements are frequently very broad. It's more or less just says, analyze what techniques the writer used when writing their text. So those techniques, there's countless techniques. So the problem with writing it is sometimes you don't know what to focus on. So AP English language teachers frequently use this acronym to help you. FIDS, F-I-D-D-S, figurative language, imagery, details, diction, and syntax. These are the things that are always going to be evident in a text, and you can always rely upon to analyze when analyzing during a rhetorical analysis essay. So in the previous example, I was analyzing diction, the word choice of the author, syntax, how the author structured it through that kind of first sentence with ending on the comparison, the figurative nature of that ounce of effort phrase. So whenever you have a question that's asking you to write such an essay, if you have this in the back of your mind, you should be pretty safe. Think, is there significant usage of figurative language? Is there significant imagery? Are there details that stand out? Is there a specific type of diction employed here? Is the syntax, noteworthy? And as you look through those things and consider the effect that each has, you'll start to come up with something. So let me give you an example with not just, a teacher's comment on a failed paper, but a real essay that we might write. So on the first day of class, we looked at this speech by Malala Yousafzai, which she gave to the UN General Assembly in support of education for women. So here's an example of how the question would look. This is a typical rhetorical analysis question. Carefully read the speech, analyze the rhetorical strategies the author uses to develop her position about the importance of education for women. So as I said, very vague. And we have to think, all right, what are the strategies in the speech? What are those strategies supposed to accomplish? So the topic is the importance of education for women. What is the speech trying to accomplish? What's the effect it should have on its listeners? Well, it should inspire them to act, right? Or at least convince them that the cause is important. So we want to ask, what are the things that Malala does to convince her listeners? Who's the audience? What do they need to be convinced of? What techniques do that? So if I look at the speech, and you can pause it now too and go back and look at the speech. If you remember back to the first class, the things that I was thinking about most was the details she was using, where she was comparing her cause to many other historical causes. And some of her syntax, she has a lot of sentences that she repeats the same structure over and over again, and it's really obvious. Also diction, she has words that she keeps using over and over again. So my thinking were those three techniques really make her speech much more persuasive about this overall topic. So in the essay, I would discuss two things: how she uses frequent repetitions of words and sentence structures to challenge those who would diminish her cause, and that this repetition emphasizes her confidence in the cause. So the idea is the repetition has the effect of showing how confident she is, and that confidence makes her cause seem more important, has that important effect on the reader or the listener of really, supporting her because of her confidence. And the other thing she does is she uses these details that elevate her cause through comparison. She compares her cause to that of Martin Luther King and Gandhi. By constantly bringing up these illusions, she's kind of getting it in the mind of her listener that what she's doing or what she believes in is just as important as what they believed in. And so that has that same effect of being really convincing to the audience. So structurally speaking, I could have two body paragraphs just on repetition. I could talk about the repetition of word choice, the repetition of sentence structure, and what effect it has. I could have two body paragraphs on illusions. She has details where she compares specific people to what she's doing. She has details where she compares specific movements. I can analyze why she does that. You see how just through this very broad essay prompt, just through a small amount of text, you can have a full essay and analyzing the choices an author makes and the effect that those choices have. So tomorrow you are going to write this essay, but you cannot use my examples here. You can't write about repetition. You can't write about these allusions she makes to other causes. You have to come up with your own. So you can read the speech again in our Google Drive folder, where you can open up this presentation and click here in Google Drive. And then you'll fill out a little form for homework tonight, just kind of hinting at what you'll write in the essay tomorrow. And then tomorrow you come into class and you'll write the full essay. And I know this is hard and you're just kind of figuring out what this kind of essay is, but I want you to practice doing an entire one off the bat so that you get a sense for the type of writing that's necessary. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.